Okay, stop me if you've heard this before. You see a video online, it's really catchy, but you're a little skeptical of the message. But it's presented so well, you somehow buy in. So how are you to know whether what you're watching is for real or if it's just a bunch of hot air? Luckily, we have an expert in our midst today who's going to tell us all about the big 5 social media red flags that you need to know about so that you can walk away knowing the truth. With that, we welcome back my friend in jovial crime. Hello, Dr. Roxie Becker. How are you?
Chuck, it's always so much fun to do these with you. Honestly, we were just laughing here so much before this episode began, and I know there are going to be even more laughs with the videos that we're watching today. So I'm so excited.
Classic. And we haven't done any reaction videos before on the show.
No.
And I think that this is a really cool way because, in all seriousness, I get that question all the time. How can we tell if this is the real deal or not? And when you were on recently and we were talking about seed oils, you did a really good job of outlining, here's a good example with good information, and then, you know, a BS one. But the BS one was so glitz and glamour, demure, as it were.
Very mindful.
Exactly. That I was like, all right, well, why don't we do a whole show on this? So you've got 5 great examples that we can watch along. You can just watch this with us. And if you're listening to the podcast, no problem. We'll put the links to all the reels and the TikToks and the grams and all that stuff so you can watch those too. So anyway, without further ado, let's just get
Let's get into them. I wish we had a little red flag that we could wave around. That would be really fun.
We're going to work our way up.
You know
we're
what?
Not quite there yet.
Yeah, we're going to get some props when we do this again, I think. Little red flags to wave
time.
around.
Next time. We'll go downstairs to Rodman's. What aisle are your red flags on? All right. Anyway.
So to be clear, we're talking about red flags for nutrition information on social media.
Yes.
Not dating red flags or anything.
God.
For that, you got to go to another podcast.
Yes, yeah. There's a whole genre for that.
Yeah.
Anyway, nutrition red flags on social media. Number 1, what is one of the first that you look for?
Right. So anyone who takes an ingredient or a nutrient or a chemical and just labels it as toxic, bad, without taking into account the dose.
Okay.
Right? Before we get into the video, have you heard of hydrogen monoxide?
Hydrogen monoxide? No, I've heard of hydrogen peroxide.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I've got some scary information for you.
What you got?
All right. So hydrogen monoxide is a chemical.
Uh-huh.
Actually very dangerous for us, right? When you consume this, it can cause cerebral edema, so swelling in the brain. Your brain literally swells, and because your skull is a fixed volume, it just herniates down and you end up being brain dead. If you inhale this chemical, it can cause difficulty breathing, eventually suffocation. And the problem with hydrogen monoxide is that it is in almost every single one of our foods. If you read the ingredient label, you can find it there.
Hydrogen on an ingredient for real?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Sounds super scary, right?
Yeah, like I'm freaking out right now.
Hydrogen monoxide is water. Do you see how I can make something sound really scary?
Oh, you suck. You suck so bad right now. No. I'm done with you. This is the last time you're coming on the show.
I was really hoping that you didn't know what it was, because if you did, that would have taken the punchline away. But do you see how if I can make something sound very scary, that can be very normal, right?
Yeah.
It's life-sustaining in a certain amount, right? You drink too much water in too short of a time, you actually can get cerebral edema, brain swelling. That's a very, real possibility. But now we're talking about like gallons and gallons, right? Not just your little Stanley cup.
Yeah.
Not just your little Stanley cup.
Available on Amazon. Click the link below.
If you breathe it in, right?
Yeah.
Difficulty breathing, you can suffocate by drowning. So you can make things seem very scary, even if they can be completely healthful or normal in lower doses.
Damn.
This is why the dose response effect is very important to talk about.
Way to set the table.
All right.
Man,
I got you there.
You teed us up, man.
That's got to be a short. We have to put that on Instagram or something.
Make sure you leave in the part about you suck, because, man, you had me like hook, line, and sinker. I was like, you were just reeling me in, man. Whatever. Get out of here.
All right. Let's look at another example of this being done. All right, so just to be clear, we're not trying to single out any individuals. We are looking at principles that people can then apply to other videos, right?
Gotcha.
This is Paul Saladino. Chuck said I have to make this joke. He can't be a good carnivore if he's got salad in his surname.
We're not singling out individuals.
We're not.
We're just
I was
pointing out
told,
facts.
I'm looking at the camera. I was told to make that joke.
She was. This is true.
All right, so let's look at what Paul says about oats.
This oatmeal contains significant amounts of glyphosate, a weed killer, which is strongly associated with cancer. Monsanto, the producer of glyphosate or Roundup, has now settled over 100,000 lawsuits totaling $11 billion for cancer connections with glyphosate, a pesticide, a weed killer found in significant amounts in Quaker oatmeal. All of these products contaminated with glyphosate. Glyphosate is also implicated in infertility, autoimmunity, potential gut damage. You do not want to be eating significant amounts of pesticides like glyphosate. Oatmeal in general, I think, is bullshit, but here is one more reason to avoid this kind of oatmeal in your diet completely.
I'm a little bit offended that he went after oats so hard.
Yeah. Well, what did the Quaker Oat guy ever do to you,
Right?
Salad Master? So, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to lie. I have heard about glyphosate before, and there have been experts, honestly, who have come on the show and said, well, look, we got to get the stuff out of your diet, right? It seems to me, though, like you're kind of like, this may not be as big of a deal as a lot of people make it out to be. Talk to us.
Yeah. So we're going to look at the dose,
All
right? Again, the dose is really important here.
Right.
So there are regulatory bodies in the US who look at all the data, come up with a safe level of what you can consume. And they've set that, the acceptable daily intake, to be 0.5 milligrams per kilogram. Okay. Wish the US would just use a metric system. It would make my job so much easier. But I'll convert to pounds. Don't worry.
We don't know it.
I'll convert to pounds. Yeah. All right. So 0.5 milligrams per kilogram for your average 70 kilogram adult, which is like 155 pounds, right? That means that you can consume up to 70 milligrams per day.
All right.
Okay. And that's acceptable, right? So these levels have been set based on data we have in humans, in animals, and there's 100-fold safety factor that's worked into this. So the level of consumption that causes, toxic effects, we've now set the acceptable daily limit to 100-fold, even lower than that, just to make super, super sure that we're not getting anywhere close to toxic doses, all right? Now, a couple months before this video came out, the Environmental Working Group went around, tested oats, muesli, oat bars, all sorts of oat products for glyphosate. And they found that on average, it was 500 parts per billion or lower. It's a lot of numbers. Stay with me. I promise we're getting to the punchline here. All right. Which 500 parts per billion is equal to 0.5 milligrams per kilogram. Okay.
All right.
Which means that in order to reach our 35 milligrams of acceptable daily intake, you would have to eat 155 pounds of oats to reach the level of intake of glyphosate that is acceptable, not even nearing a toxic level. All right. Again, I'm not funded by big glyphosate. I'm not here to promote pesticides or anything. If we can get it out of the food, that would be amazing. I'm all for that. But when you're looking at the toxic effects of these pesticides, it's often people who are spraying the crops, who are breathing this in. It's being, absorbed directly onto their skin.
Right.
The absolute minimal trace amounts that are found in oats, not going to negatively impact your health, right?
All right.
And the other issue is that when people do videos like this, it scares people away from completely healthful foods. We have so much human evidence showing that oats reduces blood sugar levels, it's great for weight control, reduces markers of inflammation. So now you're scaring people away from this completely healthy food, which they probably would have had with like berries and other healthy foods. And now what are you going to eat instead of that? You might think, oh, well, if all plants are sprayed with glyphosate and pesticides, I might as well just eat bacon and eggs or go to McDonald's. What's safe to eat anymore? Causes a lot of confusion, right? But ultimately, the message is that even if something tests positive for glyphosate, the level of glyphosate in these food products is so low, not going to have a harmful effect on your health.
Devil's advocate, though. Right.
Yeah.
A couple of things pop into my mind as I'm just going to put on my reporter hat and clap back a little bit.
Oh, do it.
Number one, what about the cumulative effect over time? You keep talking about that daily limit, but if somebody eats the oats with the glyphosate morning after morning after morning, say over the course of a decade, They definitely hit that limit. I mean, is there such a thing as that toxicity building up
Yeah.
over time and then causing the damage that they were talking about in the video?
Yeah. So remember, this isn't staying in your body forever, right? Your body is excreting it. So it's not like this accumulates over 10 years, you're not getting rid of any of it, and it accumulates to this toxic level because your body excretes this naturally. So if you're meeting that daily limit, yes, you might see adverse effects. It might build up a little bit, but to actually get to that point, no, it's not going to.
There's another school of thought, though. It's like, if something is not good for me, why would I even want to ingest it, even in trace amounts, even if it's probably not going to kill me? Right?
Yeah.
Like, I could probably dip my finger in bleach and, like, taste that.
Yeah.
Nothing's probably going to happen to
Yeah.
me. I'm still not going to do it because bleach is toxic to humans. So that's, you see where I'm going
Yeah,
here?
that's a great
so it's
analogy.
like, why even bother? Like,
Yeah.
couldn't you just find oats sans glyphosate, or are they in
Yeah.
every variety of oat?
Some do test for glyphosate, and you absolutely can get ones that don't have glyphosate. I believe Oatly as well now is glyphosate free. They have that label on their oat milk. When it comes to something like this, we have to weigh up the risk benefit. Okay.
All right.
So if you can afford to, and you can find products that don't have glyphosate in, absolutely avoid it. I'm all for that. I'm not saying eat it. I'm not saying taste the glyphosate. But if you have someone, for example, who can only afford to get the cheapest oatmeal on the store, the benefits that they're going to get from including oatmeal in their diet is going to far outweigh the possible minor adverse effects that they have from these trace amounts of glyphosate.
Right on.
So if you're weighing the risk benefit, I would rather have someone eat the oats and improve their health than be worried about this one chemical.
All right. And you may not know the answer to this one, but the $11 billion in settlement, one, I would want to fact check that. I don't know what the exact number is, but two, was that 11 billion doled out to consumers, or was it the people who are actually working in the fields and handling the chemicals as you were talking about?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one. I
Yeah.
think it's a lot of people who were living near farms that were being sprayed with these.
Right.
So there was a lot of this in the air,
Much
you know,
higher
and kids
exposure.
are
Yeah.
breathing it in. I
Yeah.
believe there was
Yeah.
some kid cancer cases that were linked. So I believe it's people who lived or worked on or near these
Yeah.
farms.
Yeah.
Fact check me on that, right? Don't take my word for it. I believe that's the case.
Okay.
I
That's
think
a
it.
fair point. And we will fact check that on a future
Yeah.
episode and circle back. I want to move on to another video. And this one, when I saw this on your list, I was like, okay, I know I can work with this one, because this is actually something that I struggle with here on the show, is how to present content that I know people are going to want to look at, because as a society, we always want to look for that one thing, that one magical answer, that one nutrient, that one food that's going to
right.
solve all of our problems.
Right.
It's always one thing.
Yes.
But that one
The one thing that no one wants to tell you about.
Exactly. Or everybody wants to talk about, but what they don't tell you about is the context then that comes with this one thing. So when you focus on
Yeah.
one thing and you don't get the full picture, you're missing a big piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
That, to me, I would think would be a social media red flag.
It absolutely is.
All right.
And the red flag is nutrient reductionism, where we're looking at one specific nutrient or food or component of something, and we're not taking into account the context of the food that we're consuming.
Give
So
us an example.
let's take a look at this video.
You said grapes are sugar bombs that are
They are
problematic.
sugar bombs. There's as
But that
much
doesn't mean
sugar
that-
in a cup of grapes as in a Hershey's candy bar.
Yeah, but that requires nuance. A child hears, a mother hears, grapes are a sugar bomb, might as well give them Hershey's. They will give them Hershey's.
Might as well.
Don't you think grapes have more nutrients than Hershey's?
Well, believe it or not, extra dark chocolate has some of the highest polyphenol content.
But we're talking
around.
about milk chocolate.
Yeah, I wouldn't give anyone milk chocolate.
Exactly. So why even bring the comparison?
Well, homeboy was like fact checking him big time.
I'm pulling out my hair.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. A homie there, I will say, like, did a good job of fact checking him. Like,
Yeah.
I think I understand sugar. Like, and I know that there's sugar found in fruit, and obviously there's sugar in chocolate.
Yeah.
Once it's added. How can somebody compare like on the 1-to-1 level, that a grape and a chocolate bar are the same thing. Like like common sense at some point
Sounds
has to
crazy.
like this to me actually, like, yeah, I have that same reaction. If I didn't have product in my hair, I'd be pulling
Yeah.
it too. Like it's just
I
like,
fixed it. I was like,
like, are you seriously telling me that, like, just God bless America, help me understand. Talk for a minute. I got to calm down.
do we need a fan you
For
over
real,
here?
like,
Can we get a fan?
I mean, like, God, you don't have to have a medical degree. You don't have to be a nutritionist to realize that a grape
Yeah.
is a health food.
Yeah.
It is a whole fruit.
Yeah.
How in the world can you put that in the same category as a refined carbohydrate as a chocolate bar
Yeah.
that's got dairy in it?
Yeah.
That's got refined sugar in it. It does not make sense to me, Doc.
Doesn't make sense to me either. And Dr. Mike, who is the interviewer here, did a great job highlighting that there's always new ones, right? So in this case, you have to look at the food matrix, what it comes packaged together with. You're looking at grapes, you've got fiber, you've got polyphenols. We have, again, human research that shows that when you give people grape juice, it improves their outcomes. Even for athletes, right? It can actually improve athletic ability. Comparing it to chocolate, which is going to be high in saturated fat. If you're talking about milk chocolate that's made with full fat cream dairy, saturated fat, added sugars, high in total fat, might have, a lot of sodium. I don't know what the sodium count is in chocolate, but all of these things that are not health promoting, and you're boiling this down to purely the sugar content. I mean, this is just completely factually inaccurate. These two foods are going to have completely different effects on the body. And something else that he did that should actually be a red flag is how he moves the goalposts. So back when I had Instagram, I got into a lot of debates in the Instagram comment section. It was very exciting to me.
You?
Eventually, I started to pull my hair out and deleted Instagram. But I got into a lot of debates on Instagram about topics like these, because even if it didn't convince, the person making the video, hopefully people would have learned from the debate that we had online.
Right.
But you'll often see that people that don't have evidence to support their claims, they move the goalposts, right? So here he's like, Hershey's bar and grapes. Dr. Mike says, hold on. And he's like, no, well, I'm not talking about milk chocolate. I never tell anyone to eat milk chocolate. What about, now I'm talking about dark chocolate. And so as you provide evidence to refute their claims, they slowly start to change what they're saying. Another example is if you're talking about like plant-based fats versus butter, lard, ghee, they may say butter has better health benefits. You can show them science that refutes that claim. They'll be like, oh no, well, I'm talking about grass-fed butter. If it's, if the cows are corn-fed, then it's different. You can show them research that. Yes, well, this was done in Ireland. We use cows from the US, so Irish cows are different. So they're continually shifting the goalposts because they won't actually admit that they were wrong. So
Yeah, those Irish cows, man, they're just the
All
worst
right.
of the worst, aren't they?
poor Bessie and Siobhan and Quiver. Quiver's an Irish name.
So, oh my God,
I
I love it.
I worked with someone called Quiver once.
Did you really?
It's spelled like, how do you spell it?
Q-U-
It's SH, I don't know. It's crazy.
I got it. I don't know.
But yeah. Anyway, back to the point.
Yeah.
When we're talking about this nutrient reductionism, it's really dangerous because eventually people get so bloody confused, they're going to throw up their hands and end up eating anything.
Right.
Can't have grapes, might as well have, chocolate. Oh, well, if apples also have sugar, I might as well just have a cake. I'm going to enjoy it more and it's the same sugar, might as well have it. And then they're going to be worse off in the long term.
Honest to God, I was half like expecting him to walk it back to the point where he, like, I was expecting the interviewer to be like, well, what about the fiber? And then, like, I was half expecting him, to, like, the other guy to be like, well, eat a Nestle's Crunch. That's got rice in it. There's your fiber. Slows down the sugar absorption. Like, the body does not absorb the sugar from a grape in the same way that it does the sugar from a chocolate bar. It just can't. And I think fiber plays a big role in that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
You're
it
the doctor
does.
here. Yeah.
No, it absolutely does. That fiber is going to slow the absorption of glucose so you don't get such a massive spike as you do with these foods that contain all these added sugars that are a lot more refined. So,
And this the average person doesn't geek out for nutrition like you and I do, right? So
Oh,
they're not
we
gonna sit
love
there
it.
and like fact check that. They're going to take it as the gospel, and it's
Yeah.
just like that's what makes the stuff so
Yeah.
dangerous.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And most people these days are getting their health and nutrition information online.
Yeah.
I mean, Instagram, TikTok, especially for the younger population, it's where you're getting a lot of your information.
yeah.
So this is what people see and this is what people learn from, which is why it's important that we're talking about it.
There was, and we talked about this a little bit in the first video, but there used to be a show here in the States called Fear Factor and another
I
one called
love that.
Scare Tactics. And those are two avenues that people really explore when they're producing these videos as well. Like these are well designed to scare the ever-loving bejeebus out of you, aren't they?
Yeah. Except these days, instead of being locked in a box with spiders, it would be like locked in a box with some seed oils or, you know.
You're going to be in a box with 5 gallons of canola for 5 hours.
Oh, I don't think people would do it. I think they'd rather choose the spiders.
I don't know. You might come out with glowing skin. Nobody's telling you to eat it.
Yeah.
You're going to have like soft skins, right? We're in the,
Yeah.
like the dry season here. It's
Yes.
winter.
It is.
Ah.
We're just talking about this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Coconut oil. You can put it on your face. Just don't eat it.
And you smell delicious.
You would.
I bathed in coconut oil for 5 hours. God, how long would it
Yeah.
take you to get that scent off? Anyway,
Wait,
scare
what is
tactics.
that quote from, is it Step Up the movie where he's like, tastes like candy cane at Christmas? No? All right. Anyway, so moving on. Apparently that didn't land as well as I thought it would.
All right.
All right. We got people laughing. Yeah, I promise. It was funny to some people.
Oh boy. Not that was such a warm
Do
and
you not
inviting.
know that?
I have no idea what
Have
you're
you
talking
never
about
heard
right
that?
now. No.
It's Moose from Step Up. And I don't know, they're in
is
like
that
a lunch
movie?
scene.
Like what?
Yeah,
what
it's like
was
a dance movie. And he's like, tastes like candy cane at Christmas.
All right then.
All right.
Scare tactics, everybody.
We're going to pause this episode
Yeah.
so everyone can take a breath and collect ourselves again.
Get it back on track. Here we go. Scare tactics and candy canes. Talk to us.
All right.
All right.
Oh, gosh.
All right. No,
right.
for real. Real
okay.
tip here. No, seriously.
Yes, okay.
Like this is the
Red
whole
flag
thing.
number
Like,
3.
Yeah. Scare tactics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fear factor.
Let's see. Let's see an example.
All right. So the third red flag is when someone uses fear tactics, right? They make you.
I just can't. I can't even look at you right now. Oh my God.
All right. Don't look at me. You look.
Christmas. Doc rocks.
All right.
Anyway.
All right. Maybe the dance moves aren't as good as the.
Step
Actually,
up,
no.
everybody.
None of it's good. None of
No,
it's good.
It's all horrible.
All right.
Step up to the plate and knock this one out.
But
Thank you.
all right. So when people fearmonger around certain foods or ingredients or processes or experiences, and especially if they're selling you the antidote, right? And this is a great example of that.
Did you know that even if you don't have prediabetes or diabetes, you can still be experiencing glucose spikes on a daily basis? A 2018 study from Stanford showed us that up to 80% of people who do not have diabetes still get massive glucose spikes from common foods like breakfast cereal. And these spikes lead to cravings, fatigue, inflammation, premature aging, hormonal issues, etc. So here's what you do. Start with my 4 main hacks. Savory breakfast, vinegar before eating carbs, a veggie starter before lunch or dinner, and moving for 10 minutes after a meal.
All right.
All right.
Before we break down the message, I will give her props on the outfit, the yellow shoes with the
Right?
yellow sweater, very
Right?
fashionable. As a doctor, how much truth
Is
did you
in
see?
there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a glucose spike after you eat carbohydrates, it's like, congratulations, you have a working pancreas. Like, your body's normal. Well done.
Yeah. So so
But-
that's a normal response.
It is.
Okay.
In fact, it's not only normal, it's necessary because it's the rise in blood sugar levels that signals to our pancreas, hey, you need to release insulin. We've got some sugar here that needs to get in the cells. You need to release insulin. So that actually signals to our pancreas that we need to start getting the sugar out of the blood. She is a marketing genius. I'll give her that. She spent many months, many years, I think, speaking about how dangerous and scary these glucose spikes are. And then she came out with an anti-spike supplement that is $65 a month that you can take to prevent the glucose spikes. So
Well played.
great marketing strategy, which I thought of something like that.
I know, right?
But in terms of the science, it's not very true. So glucose spikes are normal to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Everyone experiences them. We have certain ranges of normal blood sugar levels, right? So without fasting, glucose, if you do a glucose tolerance test, your A1C, markers of insulin resistance, all these metrics have certain ranges because we see that when they're above a certain level, your risk of disease and death increases. Below that level, perfectly normal, perfectly fine. And your body is so brilliant at maintaining homeostasis, which is balance. So normally, you should be able to deal with these blood sugar spikes normally. It's completely normal. Once it goes above a certain level or for a prolonged period of time, then it's in prediabetes, diabetes territory. Then it leads to damage to your blood vessels and heart disease and all sorts of things like that. In a normal person who does not have prediabetes or diabetes, these glucose spikes are perfectly fine, perfectly normal, right? And in people with type 2 diabetes, there's been some very cool research that has shown that when they eat more carbohydrates, their blood sugar control improves. A very cool study.
Depending on the type of carb, I would assume. Right?
Oh, yes, Chuck, you took the words out of my mouth.
Thank y'all.
You've clearly been doing this a long time. If anyone wants to read Thomas Campbell's study, he published a great study in 2023. People followed their usual diet for 7 days, the DASH diet for 7 days, which is kind of like a healthier version of the standard American diet, but still includes a lot of chicken and lean protein and dairy and everything. Then a whole food plant-based diet for 7 days, and then back to the DASH diet. So they had like diet whiplash, just going back and forth. But they wore these continuous glucose monitors, and the charts in the study are really cool to look at. And it found that when they ate the whole food plant-based diet, they were getting maybe around 80% carbohydrates, more than any other dietary phase. But when you look at the readings of their blood sugar and their insulin sensitivity, it all improved on a plant-based diet, which is very cool. So it's not, don't avoid the carbs. Quality of carbs is important, but also the other foods that you're eating, right?
Right.
Dr. Barnard's got that great, he explains it so well with the fat buildup inside the cells.
Oh, yeah, the intracellular lipid.
Yeah,
That's the one fancy word that I've committed to memory.
Yeah.
Everything else, is just not even a college level that comes out of my mouth. Yeah. Well, that's cool. That is important to note. But I think the big takeaway here is scare tactics.
Yes.
Glucose spikes, perfectly normal, people.
Yeah.
Fear not. You need not a supplement.
Don't fear the carbs. You don't need to fear the glucose spikes.
Yeah.
They're completely normal.
All right, let's move on. One of the ones that kind of bug me, and I know a lot of people who have come on the show say the same thing. It's like somebody will be saying something and they won't say where they got the data from. It's like, where did you pull this from? Right?
Yeah.
I can give you a guess. It wasn't from a journal that you pulled it from. You pulled it out of your,
let's not say that word on the podcast, Chuck.
But yeah, you see what I'm saying here.
Yeah.
Red flag.
Red flag. If people are not providing the references or not showing where they got their information from so people can fact check them, it's a huge red flag. So let's take a look at an example of this.
Chia seeds sound like a superfood. They have short-chain omega-3 fatty acids, and they make a jelly-like coating when you soak them. But buyer beware. In human studies, chia seeds increased inflammation in the subjects despite the fact that their omega-3 levels went up. You're much better off using basil seeds. They'll act the exact same way. You can substitute them in every chia seed recipe.
All right. So that's a big message in a very short amount of time there. I noticed that there is no link to any of the seeds, or no link to any of the seeds, no links to any of the studies.
No link to the studies, but he did say that there was, let me just get the wording right.
They make a jelly-like coating when you soak them. But buyer beware.
Buyer beware.
In human studies, chia seeds increased inflammation.
All right. In human studies, chia seeds increased inflammation.
How hard is it to fact check something like that? If somebody says it's a human study, right? Don't you think that you should be able to go and find that data on Google Scholar, PubMed,
I tried.
something like that? Did
Chuck,
you now?
I tried.
Uh-huh.
I tried long and hard to find this study that he's talking about. And I've watched other people's reaction videos to this video of his as well. No one can find the study. But it sounds very credible when you say human studies find this if you don't share the link, right? And he's a doctor.
Right.
So it's that appeal to authority as well. He's a doctor. He's saying research shows. Also, everyone says research shows. Oh, research found this, right? That's what's thrown around the dinner table for anything these days, you know, not only nutrition.
Right.
Research found, studies found. But in 2024, so last year, still feels like this year, last year, we're in 2025, January 2025 at the filming of this episode.
Yes.
In 2024, there was a big meta-analysis, and we will include the link for you all.
Credibility.
And it looked at the average effect of chia seeds from 10 randomized control trials. People eating chia seeds.
Right.
I think it was like 2.5 tablespoons a day or something. And it did not negatively affect inflammation.
Not at all.
In fact, I got that wrong. Sorry. It was around 3 to 4 tablespoons of chia seeds a day.
That's a
And it
healthy amount.
actually reduced markers of inflammation in the blood. And you can go
Really?
and read that study. So I don't know where he gets this from. Again, we try to find the study that he's citing, and I'm happy to be corrected. If it is out there, let me know. I would actually be interested in reading it. But you also have to look at the overall body of evidence, right?
Right.
There's one study that says everything these days.
Right.
There's a study saying that smoking is good for you. There's a study saying that exercise is bad for you. You know, you can find a study on everything these days.
sure.
But when you're looking at the total body of evidence, chia seeds reduce markers of inflammation. They're healthy. Put them in your oatmeal.
Would I be right also to think that when you're talking about data from a meta-analysis which combines multiple studies,
Yeah.
probably is going to carry a little bit more weight than just that single study on its own?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because now instead of looking at, say, 50 people or 100 people, you're now combining hundreds, if not thousands, of results from people into this one study. Great for giving you a big overview of what the research says on a topic.
All right, so the doc in that interview was talking about a human study, but there are other kinds of studies out there that have not been done on humans, but somehow or another that data then seems to apply to us.
Yeah, we're talking about animal studies.
Yes.
So red flag number 5, I believe it is an over-reliance on mechanisms or animal studies.
Right on.
And you see this a lot in people who promote the carnivore diet. They're very quick to show research when it aligns with their biases. When it's a rat study or rodent study, you show human studies. They always have issues about how it was conducted. Right. Problem is, I don't know. You don't look like a rat to me. I wasn't a rat the last time I checked.
No.
So, I mean
most days I'm not. I mean, my wife's called me worse. I don't know.
So we're not animals. Our body is not the same as animals. We do not, things don't affect our bodies in the same way that they affect animals because we're completely different. So let's take a look at this video.
I get a lot of questions about mushrooms. I'm not a fan, I don't eat them. Raw, white button mushrooms, portobellos, etc. contain defense chemicals like agarotine. If you want to eat mushrooms, cook them heavily. If you want to put a little bit of mushrooms on your steak, not going to kill you, especially if you don't have issues, but know that just like all other plants and fungi that are stuck in the ground, they're going to have some defense chemicals. If you cook them, you'll probably get rid of most of those. I think some of them are going to survive. That being said, if you do have autoimmune issues or other gut issues and you're eating a ton of mushrooms, this is one of the foods that I think is worth getting out of your diet to see if you get better when you remove it.
All
Do you
right.
get a lot of questions about mushrooms, Doc?
I don't. I wish I got more. They're wonderful. I love them.
I mean, so this one, like, I'm kind of puzzled by this one.
So this one you have to go a little bit deeper.
You do, but I immediately, and this is probably just because I've had cancer experts on the show who have talked specifically about the cancer protective benefits that mushrooms can offer in human trials, mind you.
Yeah.
And so that's the first thing that I thought of is like, well, this guy clearly either is purposely omitting that data or hasn't seen it yet.
I'll let him be the judge of that. I don't
Yeah.
want to make assumptions. But if you find this video on Instagram, he does provide a reference
Right.
in the caption.
Right.
Clicked on that, went to PubMed, downloaded the full text article and read it. This study took mushrooms and they extracted the agarotine from mushrooms. Then they took these little mice, took a catheter, like, a tube, stuck it into their bladder and injected this agarotine into their bladder. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Roomies, comment if you have ever injected agarotine into your bladder, if you take your mushrooms per bladder.
Yeah,
I
safe
hope
space.
not.
Safe space.
If you do,
Comment.
contact us because I think you need some help if you do that. Right? You're not a mouse. You're not putting mushrooms in your bladder. No. So the way, and the study found that when they did this, there were cancer cells in the bladder that developed.
Right.
Right? But now if you're eating a mushroom, like you should, in your mouth, and you've cooked it or not cooked it, that's not going to cause cancer in your bladder. And there's no human research that shows that. So the way that animal studies are conducted is often not how we would experience or be exposed to that type of food in our lives, like injecting things into your bladder. Yeah. Again, contact us if you do that with your veggies. I hope not. And the other thing is that with animal studies, the doses that they use are again often much higher than what we would be exposed to, right? Because they're trying to elicit an effect in these animal studies. So whatever they're looking at, whether it's some type of fat or a specific phytonutrient or whatever, they expose these animals to doses that are way higher than we would ever see in our lives. Horrible study. Horrendous study.
I'm looking at this from the non-medical perspective, right? Again, not a doctor, but why in the world would anybody try to say that this is a nutrition study when you're shooting the nutrient literally into the end of the digestive tract? Like,
that's a great question, Chuck.
Like,
I don't have the answer.
For the love of God, man. It's like we eat food, we drink water, it goes all the way through the body and either winds up, in the rear or in the bladder. And like, that's that.
Yep.
That's the way it works. You don't drink water through your pee hole. I'm sorry to be graphic. It just doesn't work like that, people.
Although you can through your butthole if you're stranded. No, if you're like stranded in the ocean. Apparently, if you inject seawater up your butthole, you don't absorb as much salt or something. I don't know. Fact check me on this, but apparently it's a way to rehydrate if you don't have access to fresh water in the ocean.
That's two. That's two with the showstoppers today. We got candy canes and seawaters up the butthole.
Yeah. And we have the water. I mean, the hydrogen monoxide.
I love you so much. God almighty.
Either I'm going to become a regular guest
or I'm
never going to be invited back ever.
You're coming back. You're coming back. If we have to start a show outside of the Examiner, you're coming back.
Fun facts with Roxie.
Yeah, this is gold. Yeah.
Again, fact check that. We're not advising anyone inject seawater up their butthole, just to be clear. Right. Don't want to be flagged for misinformation over here. Anyway,
man.
to get serious again.
I've always wanted to do.
Another.
Okay. This is so good.
All right. Let's.
Back on track.
I would say take a shot every time you hear butthole in this presentation, but we're not promoting alcohol either.
Can we get a shovel so we could just keep digging? Can we just keep digging ourselves a deeper hole? Oh my God. Oh. Whew. Okay, back on track.
Gosh,
back on track.
My eyes are watering.
Yeah.
Woo.
Oh, that's so good. Take a
All
shot.
right. Okay. All right, we're back.
Are we? Are we?
No,
we're not.
I'm struggling.
Oh no.
Another. Okay, to get serious again.
Yes.
Because this is something I want people to hear about. Another place that uses a lot of animal studies like this is the protein digestibility scoring systems. Have you heard of the PDCAS and the DS score? It rates protein quality.
Yes.
You must have heard people say plant proteins are inferior to animal proteins.
Yeah.
So those scoring systems use pigs and rats. Again, our anatomy is completely different. Our physiology is different. Our stomach pH is different. How we digest things is different. The length of our intestines, which affects digestion, is different. So we don't respond and digest things the same way as pigs and rats. And the other issue with these protein scoring systems is that they use raw foods. Now, when was the last time you sat with a big bowl of raw brown rice and some raw kidney beans crunching on
That's
it?
not good for you.
It's not.
Yeah.
But we don't consume foods raw like that.
Right.
And we're not pigs and rats. So again, all of their findings about how poor plant-based proteins do in these scoring systems are not directly applicable to humans, right? And when we look at human data, we see that people respond the same to plant proteins and animal proteins. They build as much muscle, it's as effective, it's even more healthy, right? Because plant proteins come packaged with fiber and all these nutrients, if you think about beans and tofu. So yeah, that's another thing to be wary of. Be cautious of those scores. I don't think they're 100% true and applicable to people. Right. So be careful of all of the animal research.
I feel like there's so much more that we could do with this, and so we are going to do more. We've got
We've got another one
today. I know we got to save it. We got to save it just because we're out of time here. We're out of time, but
we could do this all day.
I know, and that's why I want to go back and I want to do more. One, just because I've had so much fun for however long this has been going on. But two, there's just so many of these videos out there that we really should keep exploring.
And we have a lot of other flags that we haven't touched today, so
right.
I do want to come back and talk about them.
Maybe we'll have actual red flags next time.
Oh,
Yeah,
hopefully we
I
can
know.
wave a little red flag.
Set the bar here. That way we can clear it every time.
Yeah.
Dr. Becker, thank you. You're awesome.
Chuck, this has been a pleasure. I don't think I've laughed this hard in a long time.
Oh, good time. Hopefully everybody else had a good time too. I know our producer did today.
Yeah.
I know they did. Absolutely. Thanks, Doc.
All right.